A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof with the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you have to hang on to it for as long as you like, because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rochford has never spoken to Jimmy McGuinness in his life.
And this is Off the Ball Saturday News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5. Off the Ball is coming to the Cork Podcast Festival. Join us on Sunday the 27th of August in the Cork Opera House. Special guests to be announced very soon. Don't miss out on a great night of conversation and crack in the heart of the Rebel County. For tickets, go to www.corkpodcastfestival.ie/off-the-ball. Will Cork be celebrating the Sam Maguire Cup? Are wildcards going to win this? The schedule for the All-Ireland Senior Football Quarter-Finals at Croke Park is as follows. Today we got the last two champions, Kerry and Tyrone, throwing in at 3:45. Ross Mundy's are reported down at Croke Park. Then we have Armagh and Monaghan beginning at 6. Tomorrow, Derry and Cork meet at 1:45. Dublin and Mayo go head-to-head at 4. To look at, delighted to be joined in studio by the former All-Ireland winner with Kerry, Sean O'Sullivan, and the ex-Monaghan skipper and Ulster title winner, Owen Lennon. Sean and Owen, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Delighted to have you in, and obviously you'll be down at Croke Park later on, lads. You can text us, folks, if you're out on the road. If you're in a passenger, 53106, you want to give us a shout out. Oh, and this is what it's all about. Like, Monaghan's got a population of just over 60,000. You're in an All-Ireland minor final, first time since 1939. You're in a senior quarter final today. You must be buzzing up in the Fernie.
Yeah, a lot of good things happening in Monaghan this last few years. I think in fairness, just think about that coming on the way up the road. I suppose when Colm Kyle came in 2003, it was their first massive big win. We beat Armagh after being All-Ireland champions. So then, Seamus McEnany come in, and then obviously Malik and stuff like that. So there's just a great buzz around the county at the minute, and there's not too much to do down in Monaghan. Everybody's just involved in football and loves it at the minute. So a lot of great work being done there. Malone is over the minors, but Paul O'Connor's there with him, and Paul O'Connor's over the coaching setup in Monaghan, and he's behind a lot of the good stuff that's happening there. But great buzz, great to be here today, and what a festival weekend we have.
Were there many flags hanging out of windows, blue and white flags, the way down to on the Dublin? Was it the M1?
Yeah, no, there was serious traffic, with the 3 Ulster counties coming up the road. So no, great buzz. So all looking forward to it this weekend.
You've had great administrators as well in Monaghan, Sean McCaig, Pork Duffy as well.
Yeah, and Porrick's actually working behind the scenes with Finney there on the Monaghan team. He'd be the organising man, so no better man there that Finney has pulled in around him. So yeah, a lot of good things happening there, but I suppose that'll be all left aside now today at 4:15, taking on Armagh.
Sean, 20 years ago you're playing Tyrone yourself.
Thanks, John.
Pat Spillan's famous game.
How long did it take you to bring that up, John? Just a couple of minutes. Yeah. Look, Kerry and Tyrone obviously have great history. I suppose the noughties, it seemed like every second year they were playing each other, and Kerry would win an All-Ireland, and then Tyrone would come back the following year and win it, and then we'd meet along the way. And yes, absolutely, whatever about them, John. I know I was speaking here yesterday morning to Shane and Adrian. It's like they flick a switch when they see the green and gold jersey in Croke Park. I don't know what it is up there, Owen. I maybe you know more about them because you're closer to them, but they just see the green and gold jersey, and whatever way Tyrone are going, and I know they're not coming into today's game with huge momentum. They had a good win over Donegal. They should have been out of the championship, John. Let's be realistic. If John Heslin had kicked that free, they were gone. But it's always things like that. It's years like that where Tyrone are just coming in maybe as that underdog, where they just find that performance. Kerry was the perfect draw for them. I really do think that. But down below, we feel that Tyrone is a good draw for us too, because we really need to check ourselves
2 years ago, you'll be hurting after that as well, that 3-14 that you conceded.
Yeah, and I watched that game back the other night, and I definitely think if Kerry were doing their video analysis during the week and Jack had the lads sitting down, it's definitely the barometer they're going to go on. I mentioned yesterday to the lads that for the middle quarter of the game, for about 10 minutes before half time and 10 minutes after, Kerry did very, very silly things. They played right into the Tyrone traps. I don't think you'll see that today. I think you'll see a Kerry team who want to move that ball fast, especially in the wide open spaces of Croke Park. Tyrone will have Dooher and Logan will have obviously set up for it, but I think you'll see a different Kerry today where they don't run into those traps, they don't carry the ball into the tackle, and they get that ball moving up toward danger men as quickly as possible.
Did Tyrone do your head in for a while? Because every single time it seemed in the noughties they'd had your number. It's funny, every time Tyrone won the All-Ireland they come through Kerry.
They have. Do our head-ins? Maybe, possibly, but look, at the end of the day, John, if you want to win an All-Ireland, you're going to have to beat the best teams out there, and during the noughties Tyrone were a great team, and for whatever reason they got the better of us. Now, it wasn't always by that much, there was little things that swung games. I know they pulled away from us in the 08 final towards the end. Sean Kavanagh had the game of his life, a fantastic display, but there was a great save about midway through the second half where Declan O'Sullivan had a great goal chance, and if that, I think it was Pascal McConnell was in goal zone for Tyrone. If that sticks in the bottom corner, that game is swung and we have the momentum, and who knows how it would have ended up. But look, we have no problem down in Kerry saying that on the days that we lost to them we were beaten by a better team, but you know what, it kind of made us bounce back, and we always bounced back and came back and won an All-Ireland, if not the year after, then maybe the year after that. So they have something over us, John, but I think Jack pointed out that we've won the last 3 of the 4 championship games against them, so maybe 15, the tide is turning
as well.
Yeah, obviously 21 is the latest one that we have to go on, but hopefully at 5 o'clock today we'll be celebrating.
And they've been your bugbear as well in 13 and 15, because you won Ulster both years and you got to Croke Park and it just 18 as well.
I feel your pain, Sean, because we actually come up against them in the 07 and 10 Ulster final as well, and to be honest, now you can reflect back, but we at the time beat ourselves up one, and why could we not beat Tyrone at that time? But when you look at it now and look at the players they had, they were just a better team than us at that time. Like, we were close to them, but they were just slightly better, and they're phenomenal players, and that success obviously breeds true success. So you see the players that are coming through now, and they're getting, I think, yes, they haven't been brilliant, been a wee bit patchy this year, but just that new dimension they have now. They've brought in young Rory Canavan as well. It looks like a great, they look at the 2 sets of forwards setting up here today, it looks like a serious match we have in our hands.
You talk about 07, we ended up playing you in the quarter-final that year, and geez, that was a great game. That was a great game, John. I don't know if you remember it.
I remember Banty saying his heart was broken or being ripped out of it.
We were gone. Monaghan had us. If you were a fly on the wall in the Kerry dressing room at half time, Paul Galvin was after hurting his shoulder. He had an ice pack on. We didn't know whether he was going to come out for the second half or not. He wanted to. The medical team were kind of saying no. Typical of the man, he just threw off the ice pack and he grabbed fellas around him and he said, let's go, because we were in a huge battle that day. I mean,
I think you took the lead around 68 minutes. You put a high ball in, and they got a goal at the end. No, we were gutted at that time, because obviously Monaghan has never beat Kerry in the championship until the minors did, so that was a massive match for us. And to be honest, yes, we didn't win, but I give us serious belief that we were close to such a good team. But I think even Monaghan has moved on now. I think they have that wee bit of belief coming up against the bigger teams now. They can take them on.
But John, you mentioned there about small populations, and you mentioned Monaghan. It comes down to the coaching, and yes, look, don't get me wrong, of course it comes down to the bit of funding and the GDAs and the schools and in the clubs and so on. But you see Monaghan now, what they're doing at minor level. They beat a very good Kerry minor team there last Saturday above in Tullamore. That was a fancied Kerry minor team who had put a lot of work in, and they were beaten by a very good Monaghan team. I watched it. It's amazing, regardless of your population, if you have the guys doing the good work at ground level, starting in your schools, your clubs, and you can generate that through the levels, regardless of your population or the amount of clubs you have in the county, you will reap the benefits. And Monaghan have always been a brilliant example of that. I don't want to be disingenuous and say they've been punching above their weight, because they haven't. They've had some fantastic footballers, but it all comes from below and bringing that quality through. And it's a collective, really, Owen, isn't it? It's not down to one big club producing all the time or 2 or 3 clubs. It's about bringing them through to schools. We had the same in Kerry for a long time, where people were asking, why aren't we producing players underage level? And Donald Daly, who we stopped in Bird Hill on the way up for a cup of coffee, and I met Donald, former Kerry footballer, who's took over the whole coaching in Kerry and revamped the whole thing. He revamped the whole development squad system. The schools coaching improved, and in turn the club coaching improved at underage level in particular. And we went through a period where we won 5 minors in a row. Now you can say, right, well, where are those minors now? we have brought a lot of them onto the
David
senior
Clifford's
team.
one of them, wasn't he?
Exactly. Clifford, O'Shea, Gavin White, Jason Foley, all playing today, all came through that minor team of 14, 15. So you have to start somewhere, and I think Monaghan have been a brilliant example of that.
It can be done. Kildare are doing it, Sligo did it under 21 level.
Exactly. Now you talk about Kildare there, they're obviously a very big county, but it doesn't matter if you have the people who want to work as a collective and put the time and effort and the right structures in at the base level, you will reap the benefits down through the years.
If you're Tyrone today, what do you do in terms of David Clifford? Do you double mark him? How do you keep him out of the game or limit his impact?
Yeah, I think they'll definitely they'll double up on him, but I'd say they'll do serious video work on him, but I've noticed about him he's a lot of time cutting in on his left hand side, and you can see teams now starting, and now they haven't fully done it, but they're starting to catch on a wee bit. But Tyrone will bring that with 100% intensity, and I think Tyrone has a real chance here today, because Tyrone, you know what they're going to bring. This is the match that they wanted, because they're a wee bit unsure where they're at the minute. I think they're just I know it'll be both ways, but Tyrone will.
What about the 3 weeks thing, that this is their third week in a row? Does that make any difference?
I don't know. We can tell you later on this evening. But they are building that wee bit of momentum, where Kerry, have been sitting there, and iffy enough, they were beaten against Mayo. They haven't had that many difficult matches then after that, you know what I mean? 2 easy enough matches. So they're a wee bit unsure where they're at. I think, obviously, Tyrone just would be relishing this, licking their lips at this, and it makes for a great match, but I won't be surprised if Tyrone just pip Kerry today.
Will they go long with the kickouts, Tyrone? Because they got a good midfield, Niall Morgan. Do you think they'll...
Yeah, I would most definitely say, John, again, going back to that 21 game, Niall Morgan went long with everything, and Tyrone, not so much early on. I think Kerry broke even, but Tyrone will fancy their midfield, and if they're not winning it clean through I think who are the best midfield in the country at the moment, to be honest, maybe. Yeah, I think they are up there at the moment as the best midfield. Kerry are going to be up against it if they're not either winning clean possession or the breaks, And look, at the end of the day, Owen played most of your career out in that middle of the field. It's the engine room, John. It's where you need to get your hands on the ball. It's no point having the David Cliffords and the Paul Gainey's and the Shawnee Sheas inside, or the Canavans and the McCurrys on the other side. If you can't get them the ball, you have to get them the O'Neills into their hands so they can cause the problems. If you're start of possession out around the middle, you're up against it. But going back to your point on David Clifford, and of course, look, we always end up talking about him because he's such a focal point of every game he plays in. Have you noticed what he's been doing in the last few games against Cork and Louth? When the traffic has been in around the top of the D, David has took it upon himself to get out of there. Yeah. He actually swaps positions now with Shawnee Shane. It was very evident against Louth, actually. Did you see it, Owen? Yeah. So what he does now is he completely pulls his men out of there, gets out around even just inside the 45-yard line. And what Clifford has is just an unbelievable boot of a ball. And he completely negates the blanket defence, because if you slip the ball to him anywhere at all within 40, 35 yards out, he's splitting the post.
Yeah, no, you're right on that, because his scoring zone is bigger than a lot of other players.
Exactly, exactly. Everyone talks about this magic scoring zone, about being the top of the D. And you coach young fellas. I was with the 20s for 2 years. You were coaching yourself. Top of the D, lads. Let's get it into the top of the D. The top of the D now is so congested, at times you can't find a little breathing space. So he's actually taken it upon himself now to come out. And the 2 points he kicked against Louth back to back within a minute. Now, they did have a little breeze behind their back in Portlaoise. We have to take that into account. If you watch the build up to those scores, he's actually come out and he's demanding the ball. He wants the ball. He just give me the ball, and he's just turning, looking and popping over the bar. Your blanket defence is completely negated then, and all of a sudden the guy marking Clifford, whether it be Ronan McNamee today or whoever it was, Shanley down against in Páirc Uí Chaoimh against Cork, you're going, well, hold on, I'm trying to mark him tight inside. Now he's pulling me out and he's kicking points over his shoulder. What am I to do here? So all of a sudden Clifford is asking him different questions,
Yeah, and the other danger with that, if you start to bring David out, Tyrone will obviously be watching this. Right, we have him out at the 45. His defender, what's he going to do?
Exactly.
Away you go for a run. So that could bring him into it. Bring him for a run and tire him out by the time he gets
how has midfield, you're talking about Brian Kennedy, Colin Kilpatrick there, how has midfield play changed? Because it's not what it was 20, 30 years ago when it was was the automatic thing was to hit it into the centre of the park. Now it's a systems game.
Yeah, it is really, it has changed a couple of times for me. Do you know, it used to go all short kickouts, and you know the midfielders were totally done away with there for a few years, but it's come back again.
Right.
Teams are pressing up again, and there's still a lot of long kickouts to be contested. And you'll even see today with Armagh and Monaghan, like Monaghan will be happy for Armagh to press right up, because Rory Beggan can boot that ball 60 yards, and they were very close against Kildare. They could have got 3 goal chances out of that. So you know, teams are looking at that and seeing. So that I think Monaghan will be happy enough with Armagh pushing up, because he can do that. But listen, Morgan can do it. You know, there's a lot of keepers can bang it over the top. So that's the intriguing battles and the wee nuggets you'd be looking for in the matches here today.
It's funny though how the kick out has, you know, I suppose Cluxton changed the whole thing really.
Changed the whole of Gaelic football.
Oh, he did, like, you know, and he's, you know, it might sound a bit, you know, how's a Kerry man saying this, but I was delighted to see Cluxton come back, to be honest with you, because he just brings a complete different dimension to the games he plays in, like, and you're nearly interested to see, is he bringing something new again, because he's just that type of character. But a funny story, actually, Diarmuid Murphy, who's the ex-Kerry goalkeeper, Owen, you would have been under a lot of his kickouts in your day. I roomed with him with Kerry, and it just goes back to how the kickout was, you know, and Cluxton had just come into the game, probably the early noughties, mid-noughties.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Diarmuid one time, we used to room together at Kerry games, and I'd say to him, you know, this Cluxton fella, Diarmuid, like, has he changed goalkeeping or kickouts? Like, what's your philosophy to goalkeeping? Murph was pretty straight to the point. He said, I'll tell you my philosophy on kicking now. He said, I kick it out 70 yards, and if they're good enough outside, they'll catch it. That was his philosophy. But it's amazing how then Cluxton came and Beggan came, and you know, now Ethan Rafferty has gone in, and it's just unbelievable to see.
But also the press on it as well.
Absolutely. But you have to be able to do both now as a modern day goalkeeper. As Owen said, Niall Morgan, Kerry will press Tyrone's kick out today. I'd be very surprised, John, if they don't. No problem to Morgan. He's going to go along. As you see, you mentioned 2 of the best midfielders in the country there. He'll back them all day, every day to go and catch that ball over Jack Barry and Diarmuid O'Connor. We're hoping, obviously, that the 2 lads will have a big game for Kerry today, and I think they can. I think they really can. Jack Barry needs a big game in particular, I think. But you had some great battles with Darragh O'Shea down through the years. Yeah,
a couple of good battles with him. But even when you mentioned Stephen Cluxton there, because I would have played Sigerson football along with Stephen, and I know Stephen.
Yeah.
But Stephen's such a serious guy and really professional, and I think that's one thing he'll bring back to the Dublin setup today. You know, he doesn't show much emotion on his face, and I think not only his own performances, his own kickouts, but no better man than Stephen to pull boys back into line and just do your job and stuff like that. So I think he brings a new professionalism.
But he's the right keen on the pitch for Dublin. Yeah, he's the leader on the pitch for 20 years.
John, Desi Farrell would not have gone to the links to get that man back into the setup, and when he came back in first, the big burning question was, he can't go back in as number 1. He can't after his name escapes me. After Comerford playing. So come on, like, do you know what I mean? It was always going to happen. He just brings, that experience off the pitch. Do you tell me, Stephen, you know him better than I do, Owen, obviously, that he was going to sit on the bench and take a bit part role? He was coming back in to be number 1. He's back in. He hasn't conceded a goal since he's been back in the goal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Since the
cream rises to the top. And you know, tough on Evan Comerford, very tough.
Yes, and David O'Hanlon.
Look at that. O'Hanlon played a lot of the league, didn't he?
Yeah.
But you look at that Dublin panel today. It's probably their strongest panel all year, with Cluxton at number 1.
We'll see if Jack McCarthy plays tomorrow. We'll come to that a bit later on. 53106. Want to get in touch if you're a passenger out there, if you're on the way to Croker, give us a shout out. I'd love to hear from you. 53106. I keep hearing analysts saying Tyrone will be out of the championship if John hasn't scored at the end, which of course is true, though it's been overlooked as Westmeath nearly beat Galway and Armagh as well. Well, they definitely nearly beat Armagh, and then they just in the last quarter against Galway that they faltered. It's amazing that the Calavans, Peter the Great, and now it's Darragh and Rory, or especially Darragh, are playing a role now with Tyrone.
Yeah, and he's playing, and a lot of people talking about him with the smile on his face, but geez, they're dangerous off both feet. Like Darragh, like he's just, every time he gets the ball, he's just going at you. Played against Monaghan the first half, he was just unbelievable. He just couldn't be managed. So that's a big job. I think Paul Murphy's back in the Kerry team, so that will maybe nullify one of them a wee bit, but he's an exciting player. He's really, really good, and he's still, the two still still really young lads yet. As well as that, I think what it brings for Tyrone is it may even free up McCurry a wee bit more.
McCurry,
yeah, you know what I mean. Matty Donnelly might get a few more scores and stuff like that as well, because there'll be so much focus going on the Canavans now. So, you know, the more we watch them, they're getting closer. They're looking like Peter, but there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders, unfortunately.
Paddy Tally's had a huge influence on Kerry defensively. Obviously, they only conceded 1 goal in the championship. Is so tight last year, especially in the final. Is that as solid as it was?
I think so, yeah. And do you know what? We were only chatting coming up in the car there. I travelled up with 3 friends today from Cremon, and we were saying how much flack, and this is even from within Kerry, probably even worse within Kerry, that the Kerry defence still seem to get. You know what I mean? And Paddy came in last year, and obviously with the help of the management team, but obviously he brought that experience of how we sit up when we don't have the ball. We certainly looked like a lot steelier, a lot more streetwise, definitely tighter as a unit than we did in the previous few years on our way to the All-Ireland last year. And as you said, John, we've only conceded 1 goal in the championship, you know, so far this year. Maybe during the league things weren't as watertight as we would have liked. I think that was down to maybe a few new guys getting a run in the defence. Jack was trying to look for new fellas, you know, for his stability squad for the championship. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about our league form. I think Paddy Tally's influence has been massive, and I do think our defence probably does get a little bit unwarranted criticism. But as we just alluded to there, they're going to get a good test today now. They are going to get a good test today with those Canavans, McCurry. Matty Donnelly's playing fantastic football. You know, for probably the latter stages of his career, what a servant he's been to Tyrone. He's playing excellent. I think he knits the whole thing together. Did he score 3 points from play against Donegal again the last day? A poor Donegal team, let's face it, but he knits that whole forward line together. He allows the McCurrys and the Canavans to do their thing. But I do think our defence gets a bit of criticism that's probably not always warranted. Owen made a good point. I think Paul Murphy is back in today with the job of taking Rory Canavan out on the wing. I think that's Paul's job. I know Rory is quick, but Paul is a good tigerish defender, and as I just said, he's around a long time and good experience. He's also a very good kick passer. For me, I think inside I would be plumping for Jason Foley on Dara Canavan, and I would go with Tom Sullivan on McCurry. But as you know, in games that can change very quickly. You know, especially in an intense game in Croke Park, positions can switch all the time. That would be the way I see it lining up at the start, but we'll have to wait and see.
This is the Saturday panel. Sean O'Sullivan from Kerry, Owen as well from Monaghan, Owen Lennon on the All-Ireland quarter-finals. And Owen, and this is just, I don't think there's disappointment that Armagh and Monaghan are playing each other from both counties' perspectives, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think for both counties they would have been happy enough for the draw. It's nearly the draw both would have wanted. And, you know, the last couple of years, you know, every match has been really tight. They played earlier on this year in the league. Monaghan was missing a lot of players, but still it come down to 2 points. Armagh had a stronger team out there, but only bet Monaghan by 2 points. Rory, not like him, he made a bit of a mistake on the kick out, so if you had taken that away, it would have been fairly close. So I see today, again, very close, more close than maybe the bookies would suggest. I think.
What gives you hope?
Well, what gives me hope is that, like, say if Conor McManus doesn't start or does start, like, he hasn't really, he's played a sub there this last couple of games, and if you were sitting back looking at it, probably hasn't suited me. He hasn't played that role. You've been such a top player for Monaghan.
But if he has been, he's been the best player in the county's history.
Without a doubt. So, you know, will Vinny possibly start him today? Because no better man when we get to Croke Park.
Do you think he should?
I personally would start him, because when he gets to Croke Park, Conor McManus, this is when I play ball, when the lights come on. So it's I think Monaghan can take the chance today, and I would start him, because Monaghan's going to need scores. Armagh have serious forwards there, and I think Conor, like, we don't have that many out and out forwards. We have some actually half backs playing in the forwards, so I think we're going to need Conor there today playing to get us.
Will you be defensive scores then, orientated early on, do you think then?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be both teams going back defensive. I think Monaghan have been caught sometimes when too defensive. Donegal kicked points from long range against them. Derry kicked points from long range against them. So they got that a wee bit more right against Kildare. They got a few turnovers outside the 45. So I think they're going to need to do that today. But it is going to be a cagey. I think discipline is going to be key. I think they're going to be in each other's faces for 70 minutes. I think there's a whole battle, a whole new game going on between the two keepers, depending on which team is behind, because either keeper will start pressing up on kick outs. So I think there's intriguing battles. But I think for Monaghan to win, I think they're going to need to get scores small around the pitch, and even their defenders.
15 to 20 points. 15 to 20 points enough?
Just looking at it, you take out the Monaghan Kildare match, Monaghan have been conceding on average 18-19 points. I think they're going to, like, Monaghan has been known as a really defensively solid structure. This year, I don't know, they're just leaking a lot more scores now. They closed it down a wee bit against Kildare, but they're going to have to keep Kildare to maybe 14-15 points, which is going to be difficult. But that's what Monaghan has been built on this last couple of years. We have had good defences, but they're going to need that today to beat Armagh.
Rian O'Neill could be back then for Armagh.
Yeah.
Are they going to kick it into that forward line?
You see, you talk about McManus being a game changer, like Rian O'Neill is a game changer for Armagh, but I just don't know. Like, do they get caught between a rock and a hard place sometimes with where to play him? You know what I mean? Because he can shoot the lights out on his day, but you know, I think McGeeney doesn't quite know at the moment where O'Neill is at. You know, obviously he had the suspension and so on, and he had an injury which he took a while to come back from. So I mean, if he's inside, of course he's that out and out target man. But I mean, similar to what Tyrone will do with David Clifford. I mean, Vinnie Corey isn't going to allow Rian O'Neill the freedom of Croke Park inside there. You know, he's going to be bottled up. So then does McGeeney decide, okay, well I'll get more out of him outside the pitch, but then he's very far away from goals and he mightn't have that big an influence on the game. You know,
I think you're right on that. I think Kieran McGeeney, you know, at this stage he's 9 or 10 years into his man. I don't think he has found his best team.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he hasn't found it.
No.
Now that can cause confusion for Monaghan. You don't know what way they're going to line out, who's going to play in different places. But I think even the midfield has changed an awful lot. Like Grimley, I don't know if he's injured.
Injuries haven't helped now either.
Yeah, a couple of men injured. Like, I think they have maybe another couple of strong midfielders out there. But I just don't think he has settled his team. Like, even in the Ulster final, I think that was there for them. But Stephen Campbell didn't start that day, whether he was injured or whatever. I thought it very strange because there was an Ulster final there. I thought to be won for them with the whole things going on with Derry, but just didn't get them across the line.
This is a crazy question, lads. Should teams be practicing penalties at the moment this week?
I'd be very surprised if they weren't, John, honestly, because you look at the 4 games that we're lining up this weekend, and I mean, it's like Christmas Eve for a football fan. Like, it's brilliant just chatting off air there about all the games. They're very, very hard to call, every one of them. Every one of them. There's going to be very little in all of them. And yes, absolutely, could we see extra time and penalties in 2-3 out of the games? I wouldn't be at all surprised. So now,
I suppose the question I'm kind of trying to get to is it negligent not to be?
Absolutely, I totally think it is, but I'm sure, Sean, you've been involved with teams before taking penalties and stuff like that. What would it lead to? What does it lead in a training? Would you like to put a penalty training set in the middle of a training set?
No,
you wouldn't, because why he's giggling, messing and stuff like that. Yeah. So if you were to do it, I presume you'd need to take your 6 or 7 or 8 best, right? Take them aside and really focus on it, because any penalty sessions you've seen, it's messing and giggling, and these matches are too big to be at that. So, but to answer your question, I think it'd be mad not to practice it. But all in all, I wish it wasn't part of it. I wish penalties wasn't part of it.
No. It's the other ball, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that and like you've I mean, you know, you've 2 former inter-county players sitting here, and you put too much into it, John, for the lottery of a penalty shootout. You really do. And I mean, you have, like we spoke about, I suppose earlier in the year, the football championship was getting criticised because there was all these games and blah blah blah, you know. But for me, I loved the format, and I have loved it. Yeah, it's taken a while for the match to spark, but look at us now, where we're at. The first weekend in July, you could say, and we're in the summer, and we're buzzing. We've 4 fantastic games, right? But for those players of those 8 teams, you know, to have that possibility of going out on a penalty shootout hanging over you, it's not right. It's not right. And I know we have a condensed season and we need to get a winner, but it's an awful way. If a
little bit too condensed.
If a team is to go out on a penalty shootout this weekend, it'll be an awful killer. Like you know?
you look at the Ulster final with Derry and Armagh. Do you know what I mean? I just think not only this year's work for Armagh and Kieran McGeeney, there's years of work gone in there.
Absolutely.
And they go out
have won Ulster titles since 2008.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you know?
I think it's very unfair.
You go out in a penalty shootout.
But there's a few kind of like little bombs that could go off around this in terms of that being on the advance mark. So there's an advance mark to win the All Ireland. This could happen.
Could another rule that there was no need for it.
Totally.
Absolutely no need for it.
And they're getting away with it at the moment. But an Armagh Galway was such a novelty last year that we were okay with it. But it could get to the stage where
the one I think a great example of the advanced mark was the Kildare winner against, was it Roscommon? the previous weekend.
Yeah.
Where it was
that was the right way.
It was the right way. You could see it was a pre-planned move, obviously practiced in training, and I love to see that.
High ball.
Been involved with coaching yourself as well, Owen. If you practice that, lads, we're a draw game coming down the stretch. We need to work a score here. Are we going to use a mark? Yes. How are we going to work it? Brilliant. But these little chipped passes from outside the 45 into a David Clifford or a Con O'Callaghan or a Shane Walsh, fantastic kickers of the ball. A little pop pass giving a defender who's been tight as you could be to one of the top quality forwards in the country, and it's just a little pop pass over the 45. Sure, David Clifford from inside the 45 could kick it, no problem. Shane Walsh obviously has had a difficult year. O'Callaghan, Paul Mannion. It's and listen, I'm a forward, so I should be loving this, but I'm sure it's a killer for the defender.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you asked a lot of the supporters, thousands of people coming to Dublin this weekend, coming up the road, they do want to see it. What do they want to see? They want to see forwards taking on the man. David Clifford, Con O'Callaghan, Conor McManus. That's what you pay in to see. Now the kick out mark is fair enough, because that's part of the game we do want to see. But you want to see the forwards taking on defenders. That brings the excitement. It lifts the supporters off their seats seeing that, and it just is taken away from that a wee bit.
You mentioned the word buzz, John, there about the games. Sure, that's what you want. You'll have there's quoted over 65,000 coming into Croke Park today. There's about
full house tomorrow.
Con O'Callaghan taking on Pádraig O'Hora down at the Hill 16 with a full hill, or this little pop pass over the 45 for a mark, and it's the
Aussie rules.
You can hear the crowd, you can actually feel it in the crowd just deflating, So I think it's a rule that the GA definitely have to look at. I
hope so.
On the way to Croker to watch Kerry Tyrone, not being a cute Kerry, you know what, but Tyrone always capable of catching us cold. Very nervous Fran on 53106. We got a curmudgeon in the house. Jesus lads, contradiction your statements is hilarious. Tyrone will put 2 on Clifford and pack the shooting zone. If Clifford's out in the 45, defence is pulled apart. Monaghan could have scored 3 goals against Kildare. In fact, they should have conceded 4. Kerry and Dublin, Derry +4, Armagh by 6, says a very certain texture. We'll get lots of them.
He should go to the bookies if he's that certain. No, I think our point about Clifford was basically that he the point I was trying to make with David was that he has to mix up his game. I mean, it's no good to Jack O'Connor to see David Clifford inside around the top of the D being double marked by Ronan McNamee and Hamsey or one of these guys getting back in front of him. Absolutely no point. David Clifford needs to mix up his game, and I think he's learnt that over the last couple of years. Owen's point was that if he does come out to the top of this, or come out that bit further, how Tyrone are going to counteract that? Do you drive Clifford down the field? I think they were valid points. But
you don't need to defend yourselves, guys. You played inter-county football at the top level. You don't need to defend yourselves. Have you? Is it hard to kick a penalty with away in Gaelic football? Is it difficult or is it easier?
I never take one. They wouldn't let me take it, so I don't know. I can't answer that.
I never took one for the county, but it is. I mean, the goals, obviously, it's in that bit closer. But goalkeepers are so well coached now. Back in the day when it would have been,
Yeah, just closely looking at the Ulster final, you looked at Ethan Rafferty and the man in goals for Derry, like they looked massive in goals. They didn't look like much space. You could hit the ball too, and there was a lot of them penalties missed. So I think it's quite difficult in Gaelic games to score.
And keepers, you talk about practicing penalties. Keepers are practicing for them as well, because they can face a penalty from open play as well, so they're on top of their game when it comes to that.
Monaghan's Owen Lennon, Kerry, Sean O'Sullivan in studio with us for the Saturday panel, looking ahead to the All-Ireland quarterfinals. Remember, it's Kerry Tyrone 3:45. We got Ross Munnelly down at Croke Park to update us throughout the afternoon. We're on air until 5. Then it's Armagh against Monaghan at 6 o'clock. Then tomorrow we've got Derry Cork 1:45 and Dublin versus Mayo at 4. We're going to preview all of the matches and get all the verdicts from our panel after the break. You can text us 53106 if you're on the road, the passenger there. If you want to give us a shout out, please do so. And if you have any questions for the lads, any expert analysis questions you want to get, do so. 53106 at the cost of 30 cents. You can also tweet us at Off the Ball. We're back after the news. Don't go away, folks.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. And the Saturday panel continuing our build up to the All-Ireland Senior Football quarterfinals with the former Kerry forward Sean O'Sullivan and the Monaghan midfielder Owen Lennon. You can text us 53106. What's your panel's opinion on how to navigate inter-county relationships around this weekend? Tyrone man married to a Kerry woman. Well, this is a family show. I would say cook breakfast in the morning. Maybe wear one of those half and half jerseys.
Yeah, funny, we've the same problem because I'm married to an Armagh woman, so we had mixed jerseys on on this morning, one wee lassie up on the rock outside the house waving a Monaghan flag at me and doesn't run about with an Armagh. So good crack in the house. So I don't want to offend any Armagh people because they look after me well up there.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it?
No.
The bragging rights and everything.
Good banter.
So Cork Derry tomorrow. What is the situation with Derry? Obviously you've seen them twice in this season. Can they win the All-Ireland?
I'm not so sure. The change of management there, I don't think the performances have been just as good since Rory has left them. I still think they're going to be hard to beat. They're a really good team. Yes, Rory put them systems in place for them, but I'm not just sure if they're good enough now. I think maybe if Rory had been still with them, yes, they'd be real contenders. But that day against Monaghan, like up in Derry, Monaghan really made them look quite ordinary that day. So for me, I don't think they are now. They're still going to be a good team, and it's going to take a good team.
Are they vulnerable then tomorrow, do you think, to Cork?
Slightly, but I still think Derry will beat them. I think Cork have tried to take on a more defensive system, nearly copying, if you like, that Derry system, but Derry are far more well schooled than Cork are at this stage, I think. So I think Derry will pip.
Shane McGuigan's been one of the key players this year.
Yeah, see, like a lovely left foot on him, very, very hard to mark. So, and then Paul Cassidy and different boys are chipping in with scores. And that day against Monaghan, like, they just really looked at Monaghan and exposed them. They got runners from everywhere. They got scores from the full back line, half back line, midfield. As you know, Brendan Rodgers has been a revelation for them in the middle. So yeah, they really will go at Cork. But here, Cork have Hurley back and have that new guy in a full forward. Sherlock. Yeah. He's going to take marking as well. But I just think the two defensive systems, I think Derry will be way further down the line than Cork are at the minute.
And I think that's the difference really, John, between the two teams at the moment. John Cleary is building a really good thing in Cork, as much as it pains me to say it, but they are really coming, and the two wins they put back to back now. The thing about Cork was they'd always produce one big performance in a summer, but could they back it up?
Or even in the COVID year when they beat yourselves and lost to Tipperary.
Exactly. And I think that's Cork in a nutshell, the Cork of the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years. But what they've done this year is they beat Mayo and they backed it up with a real tight, dogged win over Roscommon. It took a point in the last minute, but that was a huge psychological win for Cork, because the question marks over them was, could they put two of those wins back to back? Now I think this is a different test. This Derry team, as you said, Owen, are way further down the line. I know they've had their own issues with their change of management, but the players are still working off those systems that Rory Gallagher put in place. They all know what they're doing. They know what they're doing when they have the ball. They know what they're doing when they don't have it. And I think, particularly building on last year and how far deep they got into the championship, they're just that bit ahead of Cork. Cork will definitely put it up to them tomorrow, because they're coming to Croke Park with nothing to lose. I think Cork are in bonus territory, to be honest with you, but I just think Derry will have that little bit of steel, that little bit of know-how from being together longer and working on their systems that bit longer to shut Cork down. But you're right, Cork have some exciting players, particularly up front. I think Derry will just have a bit too much for them.
Yeah. And even Cork beat Mayo the last day, but say if the top two teams had won through in them groups, I'm not so sure if Cork would have beat Mayo. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Mayo had 2 wins under their belt.
Yeah.
Of course, they were going out to win the match, but I think there was more for Cork to win that match.
There's more riding
Mayo.
on it for them, yeah.
So, so I'm not. Cork are making progress, but I just don't think they're there yet.
Ladies All-Ireland Senior Championship Group 3, Round 3, Kerry 220, Cavan 2-5, a result from Mossack Park in Tralee. At the moment, half-time at Cale Park in Group 1, Round 3, Mayo 7 points, Laois 2. Actually, there's just an update to that now. Mayo 1-9, Laois 3, so we got an update to that score. We also have obviously the Ashes going on, the British Masters Golf. We'll keep you right up to speed on the Curragh. The first Group 2 race goes to post in about 7 minutes time, the Early Stud Stakes, and remember it's day 1 of the Tour de France in Bilbao. So Dublin Mayo are Dublin a bit like the Kerry team of the late 80s, Sean, in that we all know the names are household names. So James McCarthy, Kieran Kilkenny, Dean Rock, Stephen Cluxon, as we mentioned already. But there's so much familiarity about what they did. Do they still have it, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah, it's a great question, John. I saw that Dublin panel released for the Mayo game there the other night. Scary, John.
But on legacy as opposed to
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, they definitely aren't the team they once were, but I definitely think there's a kick in them. There's one kick in them left. And for me, you need impact off your bench. And listen, we all know about teams being released, and that more than likely won't be the Dublin team that starts, and we'll have to wait and see before throwing. But if you're weighing all the 8 teams up at the moment who are left in the All-Ireland Championship, they definitely have the best bench that's out there. You know, if you go on what's released there that Dessie Farrell released on last night, was it, or Thursday night, they have the best impact off that bench. And in games that we just spoke about there in the first half of the show, they're going to be so tight and very little to call in them, kick of a ball in possibly some of the games, to have the quality that Dessie Farrell has at his disposal to come in off and change a game. Dublin are streets ahead for me in terms of what he has available. I actually would rate Mayo next in line, Kerry then maybe, and take the rest after that. But that's going to be huge at this weekend, and I think that's something he can really call on Dessie Farrell. But I take your point. Yeah, compared to that team that Mick O'Dwyer had towards the 80s, when I suppose he was trying to get that very last bit of inch out of them to win another All-Ireland and go again. It can hit a wall. But I think there's one last kick in this Dublin team, and I think that might, if Dublin win tomorrow, John, they'll be very, very hard stopped. Very hard stopped.
Very close against Kerry. That's probably the best we've seen of those. You know, we haven't really seen Kerry and Dublin play to that level. I know Kerry beat Galway between the All-Ireland when Galway were the coming team, and Galway might have been a bit unlucky this year with injuries and that kind of thing, and maybe the way the structure it should have been head-to-head as opposed to not head-to-head, but it should be on scoring to get Galway through. But when you're looking at Dublin, with the Jim Gavin era, they were so beautifully fluid with the possession game, and then they'd eventually expose teams and wear teams down. Is the system with Dublin as good as it was? I suppose my question is, do we know the style of play Dublin are, like, how are they going to play it tomorrow against Mayo? Are they going to wait, going to soak it up and then try to hit Mayo in the last 10 minutes?
I think so, yeah. And I don't think Dessie Farrell has tried to reinvent the wheel with this group of players, because they were so used to playing that system, as you alluded to there, the fluid system under Gavin. Yes, he's brought his own type of style to it. I think tomorrow, usually when we used to go to Croke Park, our aim was to really quieten the crowd and try and stifle Dublin early on if we could, get a few early scores up on the board. I think tomorrow, if Mayo are going to, I think Mayo will be the team trying to come with that early. They'll be trying to really bring that momentum on from the Galway win. Now, I don't think Mayo were all that great against Galway. They got over the line. They probably should have pushed on in the second half and won by more. But I think Mayo will be trying to make that early, real intense start tomorrow. And Dublin will be the team that, as you said, will just be calm, soak it up, get their guys on the ball who just bring the game down to their pace, the Fintons, the McCarthy's, and slowly but surely then start to bring their clutch players into the game, the O'Callaghan's. I think Mannion could start, to be honest with you. I think he could be in the corner, and get Kilkenny obviously is still, for me, he's still the guy that glues all that together up front. But Dublin are going to face a real Mayo hurricane early on, and that's what Mayo are going to bring. Now, Mayo could blitz you. They could blitz you, like they have the players to do that in the first 10-15 minutes if they hit the ground running. So Dublin are going to be very, very aware of that, composed, and soak it up. And then I think you'll see as the game goes on, Dublin will start to ask their questions of Mayo. And we all know, look, John, for whatever reason it is, when Mayo are asked questions in Croke Park, unfortunately for them and their supporters, they haven't come up with the answers. And I think if the game is in the melting pot with maybe 10 minutes to go, Dublin's experience that you speak about there will come to the fore and they'll get over the line.
James O'Donoghue was saying on the football pod that he was definitely in favour of Mayo. Look, when you think about it, on the facts of it, Owen, they've beaten Galway in their backyard. They've beaten Kerry, first time Clarny defeat since 1995. What's not to like?
Yeah, no, I give Mayo a real chance in this match, because I think they will. I know they weren't great last week, especially in the first half, and even on the stats on the kickouts, I've rarely seen a team winning a match with that poor stat on their own kick-out. But they changed that the second half. But I think now they'll come roaring up the road. They'll be buzzing. They can't wait. This is the match they also wanted. I think like that, I think Mayo can get ahead of them. I think they can quell the Dublin crowd a wee bit. But Dublin have all that experience. They have serious players, been there, done that numerous times. And if they stay in the match up to 50-60 minutes and it's fairly close, possibly Dublin may get over the line. But Mayo will be jumping out of their skin. And
they have to play with that motion than that.
But they do. They're capable of that.
They have to bring that. Otherwise, they don't really have a chance.
My trouble with Mayo, if they do bring that and they beat Dublin, it's harder to
we see that in the game against Tyrone a couple of years ago.
Yes, and that's what can happen. But here, can they do that? Of course, they can do it in abundance for 50-60 minutes. But can they hold out, keep Mannion out, O'Callaghan, James, all those guys coming at you for 70 minutes? I'm not so sure.
Mayo are as good as anything that's left in their forward division, and even Durkin was fantastic against Galway. He really, he was brilliant driving on from the half back line, kicked 2 superb points in the second half when they really needed to eat into that Galway lead, and he drove everyone forward. McBride driving forward for that goal, the little slip with Aidan O'Shea. Mayo have all the tools in the box, John, if they want to go after Dublin tomorrow. But as Owen said, can they sustain it over the 60-70 minutes? Because Dublin won't go away. They just have that in their locker because of years of building it up. And even the new guys that they've brought in, the Buglers and these type of fellas,
Pascal,
Gannon at corner back is a good operator. These fellas that have come in to replace all those brilliant players that Dublin have lost, they're good players too, so and they're at home in Croke Park, they'll have their crowd behind them. I expect it to be a cracker of a game, but I'm just leaning towards the Dubs, I think.
I wouldn't rule out a draw in this match. My fear is that Dublin could be, it's hard to know. They haven't had that many difficult matches. Yes, they drew at Roscommon, but they come through the Leinster Championship quite easy, so they haven't really been tested, and this is a massive test, so it just could take them 20-25 minutes to get up to that pitch of the game.
They've not faced that pitch then, you don't think, this season?
Not really. Like what Mayo is going to bring now will be different than they've experienced during the league or anything like that.
If Mayo are to win, how do they win?
It's their forward division, John, like the Ryan O'Donoghue's, the Jordan Flynn's. It's again getting your hands on the ball around the middle of the field. Is Ruan going to be back in? He'll be a big addition now if he's back in. I actually haven't seen the Mayo team if it's been released today.
I just forget about the teams, folks. I know, listeners out there, just forget about GA teams that are released during the week. It's a load. It's just it's invisible ink. Squeeze an orange on it and you get a different player.
True.
Well, take 13 of them. There'll always be one or two.
There'll always be one or two. But Ruan will be a big.
I don't think Jack McCarthy will start tomorrow.
You don't think so? No. Ruan though will be a big addition to Mayo if he comes in. Like they missed him. You talk about the kickouts. They really missed him against Galway. As I said, John, they have the tools and the armour up front. Tommy Conroy looks like he's buzzing. I know he was playing in a kind of a deeper role. We talk about McManus coming off the bench or starting for Monaghan. Cillian O'Connor, the top scorer in the championship, came on first ball he got against Galway, a super score.
See, I wouldn't have heard this argument about Mayo maybe in the last 10-15 years. It was always about the wing backs, the runners, the Lee Keegans. These are the type of players, and they would have Cillian O'Connor and that'd be it.
Yeah, they've changed. Good forwards
they've
now.
really developed.
In fairness, there was an awful lot of pressure on Cillian over the years to deliver. But now there's other guys chipping in with scores, so it gives them a real chance.
And there was huge pressure on Keegan as well. Himself and Diarmuid Connolly did a brilliant piece there during the week. I'm not sure where it was brilliant. Two guys who used to go at each other. My God, it was brilliant to watch. But there was huge pressure on Keegan too, because he was not only put on probably Dublin's best player in Connolly, but he was also expected to drive Mayo forward from the back. So
nearly won it in 2017.
Exactly.
Did you have a player like that? Remember, you'd Noel O'Leary and Paul Gavin had a great rivalry as well.
Yeah, they used to have really, really great battles. Not always within the letter of the law, no, in fairness, but I watched Noel O'Leary's Laker Gale, and it was brilliant. There was they had a real history. But you get matchups like that down through the years.
Who was your toughest opponent then?
For me, definitely Philip Jordan was right up there for Tyrone. Oh my God, he was just impossible. He was there next to you all the time. You just couldn't get an inch of space from him. He was fantastic. Great player, Philip. But look, just going back to Mayo, if they can get. We speak about the Kerry forwards, the Dublin forwards. As I said, Mayo are right up there. If they can get that supply into them, and I don't think they still do really back themselves with their running game, from the half-back line. We just spoke about Durkin there. But I think under McStay, they've definitely developed more of a kicking game, and they want to get that ball into their danger men that bit quicker, and we're better to do that than Croke Park.
And Aidan O'Shea is having a good year as well. Focal point of the playing attack, well, and I know he takes a lot of criticism. I think he's a great player because he takes so much attention and it can free up other players as well.
Play then tomorrow?
Oh, definitely a full forward for me. Yeah. Even the way he just done that simple, I think the goalkeeper's tee in his hand. He just left it down nicely and passed off the ball. Just simple football, but he he's playing well for Mayo, so that's another danger as well.
And you talk about the experience that Dublin have. Sure, look at Aidan's experience. Okay, he mightn't have, unfortunately for him, I'd hate to see it. I really would like to see, I think Mayo is everybody's second team, and I'd hate for Aidan O'Shea to end his career without an All-Ireland medal, but the experience he brings to that Mayo setup is huge. Like a lot of players in that position against Galway, when that ball came into them, his man was right up against him. It was Kelly, I'd say, was it, or someone, and another player would have just loved to have just maybe turned their man and onto their left foot and popped their own score. He didn't. He saw the bigger picture. He knew McBrien was in behind and had a chance for a goal. Lovely little soft hands, and in he was. That's huge experience that he'll have to bring to Mayo as well tomorrow,
and even the finish for McBrien for a full back.
Brilliant.
Do you know what I mean? Most of them would drive it. You looked at the Kildare shot last week to come off the crossbar. He really sort of looked that way and drove it to the far corner. So
that comes back to coaching as well. Like you do shooting drills and training. The shooting drills back in the day used to be, right, the backs go in behind the goals, lads, and the forwards kick away there. Everyone's involved in the shooting now, John, because McBrien, Sean Kelly, Tom Sullivan, they can find themselves anywhere on the pitch now, and they need to be able to execute it. Like I look at Tom Sullivan for Kerry, he's as good as any forward in the game when he gets into a scoring position. For me, Tom Sullivan has reinvented the game as a back. I know I'm a Liverpool fan, but he reminds me now of the way Kerry deploy him. Now he might be different tomorrow. He might have to go real man to man on McCurry or Canavan, but when Tom Sullivan is left to his own devices, he reminds me of what Klopp is trying to do with Trent Alexander-Arnold now. Tom plays up in that kind of just behind the midfield or even a little bit more forward, and he nearly dictates the play. They want to get him on the ball. He'll spray the passes, and he'll also get on the end of a score then to get a shot off. I think he's kind of reinvented that position,
Who's the Bruno Fernandes? Is a United fan of the Monaghan team?
Just from the Monaghan point of view, then we'll be looking at Carl O'Connell. He's that type of season. He's having a top season. For his age, he's just a credit. The Monaghan people just love him. Brilliant. Which is even the way he put his body on the line for that last ball against Kildare. But he's that type of player as well. He's driving at pace, and he's going to take handling today, or hopefully he will.
Backs aren't backs anymore.
No, it's not 1 to 15.
Not at all.
Total football, if you take the Dutch phrase.
Yes, you are exploited, you are exposed in one-on-one positions, and there'll be times today where Jason Foley will be one-on-one with a Canavan, or tomorrow it could be McBrien against a Con. You are in those positions, and you have to be able to defend and use your feet and use your hands and know what's around you. But in a game overall, backs have to be forwards and forwards have to be backs.
Especially in the half backs and half forwards.
Crucial.
They're constantly interchanging. So you might set out to mark him, but he'd be playing half back in a few minutes' time. But it's good to see. That adds to the entertainment, doesn't it?
I think Owen Lennon and Sean O'Sullivan the last 45 to 50 minutes have proven to me that jeopardy is really such a huge thing, because there's a bit of a vacuum in the season. You got the league, and then you got the provinces, which, to be honest, Ulster aside, are probably defunct, and then you have the round robin, and to be fair, it's come good, and now you have an amazing quarter-final to final run in. But we love the game, and that's what we're hearing here today.
Absolutely, yeah. And John, is there things wrong with the season? Of course there is. Is there things to tidy up and look at again? Definitely. But we've brought this thing in now for 3 seasons, I think, is it? Let it roll. With the game as well. You're talking about the game as absolutely.
It's not this turgid, boring.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
and even I wouldn't be surprised this weekend, even if you see some of the keepers scoring from play. Rory Beggan is quite good at Ethan Rafferty. Obviously,
you will have abandon because there's winning and losing on the line. That'll bring the abandon into chances.
So no, it's great for entertainment, and that's what you want to see. The likes of Thomas Sullivan come up kicking scores, and McCurry may not want to see that, but that's what people want. And people now, in fairness, I think a lot of coaches will be saying this weekend, go out and play, go out and take them. Somebody else will always cover back. You press on. You'll probably look at Falker today as well for Armagh. He's good for a score as well. So a lot of full back line players now are told to go, and somebody will cover for you, but that's adds to the entertainment.
And there will be periods of all the games as well, of course, where it will be cagey and teams will be checking each other out. But I think because the word you just used, because there's jeopardy now, they will be going for the kill as well.
We've about 90 seconds left. Let's get the verdicts. Sean O'Sullivan, are the heart and the head aligned Kerry today?
I'm going to go for Kerry by 2 or 3 points, John. Yeah, I think they'll get over the line. I'm going to plump for Monaghan to beat Armagh.
Go on.
I'm going to go for Dublin to beat Mayo, and I'm going to go for Derry to beat Cork.
So Derry, Monaghan, Dublin and Kerry.
That's my 4.
Well, I can't go against my own county. I'll go for Armagh, for Monaghan. I think Armagh is going to really test Monaghan. But if Monaghan on their day, they get their scores, yes, they can beat them. I think Derry would possibly beat Cork. The Mayo Dublin, don't rule out a draw there. And
to come through in extra time?
Yeah, possibly.
Mayo.
And then my other game is,
Kerry and Tyrone.
Kerry and Tyrone. I can see. He's here beside me and I'm standing by. But I think Tyrone can pip Kerry.
Why? Just briefly, why?
I just think they're going to bring that intensity, nastiness that they had before. They're really going to go at it, and they're a wee bit more tested than Kerry at this stage, and they may just pip them.
Owen Lennon of Monaghan, Sean Sullivan, Kerry, such gents to come in. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Lads, you can switch off now, you can have a drink.
Well, I can anyway. I invited Owen, but after his predictions now, he can go home.
To buy me own drink.
We're back after this break with Johnny Mercer previewing the Irish Derby on Off the Ball here on News Talk.
Off the Ball on News Talk.